as often happens with these situations, you have to have a whole bunch of things that line up. I really do believe in that. There is a timing for everything. And I think this particular album comes as a result of so many events and things that have happened that lined up to make it the perfect time for me to record this. Now, I have recorded many other things over the years, different albums with different people, but this particular one is very interesting because it's my first Italian album. And the inspiration for this actually started during the pandemic, during COVID times, which of course, boy, really threw the world into a spin. And I guess the catalyst for this was that I was asked to come up with a song to help rally the frontline workers, the healthcare workers that were suffering. And myself and my songwriter, Raffaella Fox, came up with this song called Forever Grateful. And it was dedicated to all the healthcare workers around the world. As a lot of you will remember, Italy was one of the hardest hit and first hit countries, one of the first that suffered so badly. And that inspired me to get the lyrics translated or rewritten into Italian. And I recorded that and released that, and it was hugely successful. But that was the start of something special because even though I'd sung in Italian many times, it was my Italian heritage of course, many times I've sung in Italian over the years. But singing this particular song that I'd written with Raffaella was quite special because, as a singer, when you sing in Italian, you kind of feel different. I feel very different. I feel much more attached to the lyrics, and it's a much more emotional experience. And I loved it so much that Raffaella and I decided to write a whole bunch of other songs. And that led to, of course, the album Mai Finirà. My experience as a musician, a composer, songwriter, producer with numerous artists over the years has really helped me develop my own sound and find my own path. Because every time you work on a project, and it could be a classical project with a soprano or a tenor, it could be a rock project, it could be an R&B thing, it could be of course the Seekers, who I've had a long association with. Each project you work on, you take something away from that. Musically, in terms of production wise, when you're in the studio, when you're performing, when you're playing on those things, and each element from that you put into a little bag, so that when my little bag that I kept all these things in, so that when I was ready to record, I pulled all these things out. So all the techniques, the way you sing, the way you interpret, the way I write songs now, being a little bit more mature and having experienced a few more things, of course, all these things I've learned over the years help shape the sound. And certainly this album and all the songs on it are a product of all those things I've learned over the years since I was a young boy, starting guitar lessons at 6 years old and being in the studios since I was 14. It's gone to develop that sound and my style. I've been thinking about recording my own album for a long time, and like I mentioned before, I've sung on many recordings over the years with many people, but this is the first one. This is the first album I've recorded that is totally mine, and the time was right, and I knew I wanted to do something now, but I didn't want to just record another album because I think it gets lost in the mire. Quite often you've really got to find something that's different and unique to yourself. As a producer, I get so many songs and albums sent to me on a daily basis, and most of the times you just go, it's pretty good, but I got one yesterday from this guy, and here's a country album from this guy, and here's an R&B thing from this guy, So I thought, well, what makes me different? Apart from obviously my musical skills, I mean, the guitar's my first instrument, but I play piano and drums, and I can arrange for an orchestra, and that all comes from my academic background, right? But what makes me different? And I struck on the fact that the thing that makes me really different to a lot of people is obviously my culture, my Italian culture. And I thought, why don't I record I love singing in Italian, why don't I record an Italian album? I mean, that's really different. an Italian, pure-blood Italian, man, born in Australia, what's to stop me recording all original songs and releasing it to the world? It's been incredible, the reaction, because you stand out above the crowd. It's so different. And we live in this incredible global community now. Of course, we have access to the internet, social media and all that sort of thing. So this language barrier hardly exists anymore, especially in the European countries. So it was perfect timing. Like I said, it's all about timing. This album certainly does reflect my personal growth as a musician and an individual in many, many, many ways. As a musician, it's a culmination of my influences and my experiences in the studio and playing with different bands, whether they be jazz bands or playing with an orchestra as a classical guitarist. All these things have come together. If I think about what the influences are, it's stuff I've grown up with since I was a kid. Everything from the jazz records from Wes Montgomery and John Coltrane and Pat Metheny and Aldo Meola, and so all the great jazz guitar players, to all the stuff I was listening to, everything from Earth, Wind and Fire and the Eagles and Steely Dan and Michael McDonald and the Doobie Brothers, and I could go on and on and on forever. Elvis Presley, huge influence. The Beatles, of course, Rolling Stones, Led Zeppelin, Toto, big influence. So little bits of all these things have come through. Now, I'm referencing stuff from my past, but also all the musical influences that are around today. Everyone from, Justin Timberlake to Bieber to Lady Gaga to Beyonce, to Eminem. All those things obviously also have an influence or an effect on me as a songwriter, as a producer, as a musician, as a singer. You can't help it. You hear something on the radio and you take something away from that. It could be tiny, but when you're actually starting to create your own art, your own work, these things come out. So I think most music these days, of course, is a combination of your past, and then of course that little thing that kicks in, and that's your creativity and your style, and that's you take all these things, put them together, and somehow if you can navigate through that and create something that's a little bit yours, your own, I think you're onto something. I think the greatest inspiration that started me off on this journey to record an album in Italian and write and record Italian music, it has to be my dad. So I took my first guitar lesson when I was 6 years old, and of course my hands were way too small to fit around a standard size guitar. And my grandmother, who was living with us at the time, she bought me a little 3/4 classical, which is only about that big, and the neck's much smaller, so I could get my hands around it. And I started taking lessons, classical guitar lessons, and I basically didn't stop. So I went through the whole thing, music examinations board, and just kept studying and studying and playing and studying. But one of the things that I remember so clearly that really started me off on this whole thing really was my dad, who had a great voice. He was a tenor. He was not a professional, he was a tradesman. But he used to come home from work and Mum would cook this incredible meal, typical Southern Italian cooking. It was fantastic. And Dad would have a couple of glasses of wine and he'd say, "Prendi la chitarra," which translated means, "Get the guitar." So I'd grab the guitar, little boy, and I'd start playing, and my dad would sing these beautiful Italian songs, and usually they'd be from the famous operas or arias, or quite often the great Neapolitan songs, which are some of Italy's finest melodies, and very, very famous, that whole genre of Italian music. And so I grew up listening to my dad singing those beautiful songs. My dad bought me, one of the first singles he ever bought me was, I think the first one was Satisfaction, Rolling Stones. But the second one was Nicola Di Bari, famous Italian singer-songwriter. And it was a song called Chitarra Suona Più Piano, which I love. Chitarra Suona Più Piano was just a part of my growing up. Every time I hear the beginning of that, which had this beautiful classical, almost classical guitar arpeggiated guitar beginning, and I learnt it straight away. And I loved his voice, and I loved the lyrics, and so I knew that there was something really special about Italian pop music. It was hugely influenced by, of course, through the 50s, especially after the war in Italy, by America. And Italy, apart from any other country in Europe really, had probably the most poppy sounding songs at the time, and still has. Very famous songs. Some of Italy's songwriters have written some of the greatest songs that have been recorded by many artists around the world. But it aligned with my tastes, very much so. And so the significance for me is I channel my dad, who's now passed, when I sing or write in Italian. I feel like I'm connecting with my culture and my history, because I'm very proud of my Italian culture, and I always have felt like, even though I was born here, I'm a proud Australian too, of course, but I really do feel like I'm an Italian. I think in Italian, which is an interesting thing to say. I had this conversation with many people, and Italians do think differently, and I feel like I do that naturally. I feel like sometimes I've got a foot in Australia, one foot in one country and one foot in Italy, and sometimes I just feel caught between the two. But of late I don't. Of late I feel quite clear, and this album is a celebration of my culture. Mai Finirà, translated, means it never ends. And the theme really is about love. Because I think most songs, most music, most art, whether it be sculpture or painting or literature, usually is about love in some form. Now, it can be romantic love. It could be, if you're politically minded, could be love for a political party or an ideology. If you're a murderer or it's like a criminal story or something, let's say, it's usually about love in some form that's kind of skewed in some way, whether you're infatuated with someone, or I could go on, but you kind of get where I'm coming from. It's about love and loss. A lot of the songs are about new love. A lot of the songs are about love that's lost, or love that you wish you had, or you wish you could hang on to. Mai Finirà never ends. Really, it does mean, love really does not end. But I also wanted to bring forward that regardless of how you feel, at what point in your life or career you are at, until you can think, until you can create, until the day you can dream, if you can keep doing all those things and you're healthy enough to do those things, to realise those dreams and aspirations, then it's never too late to create something or do something, as long as you have the willpower to do it. The biggest challenge I faced while working on this album really was trying to keep true to the style and the music and what I wanted to achieve, because it would have been very easy to go off and do something that was a bit too R&B or a bit too rock and roll. I wanted it to be very guitar driven because I am a guitar player. I didn't want to chase the trend or the fashion of the day. I wanted the music, the lyrics were gorgeous anyway, written by Raffaella Fox. She's such an incredible lyricist, songwriter. I love the words, and I wanted the music to be me at this time, influenced by all these bands and musicians and records that I'd heard and people I played with, and all those things. I wanted them to come out in the music, and I did not want to sound like I was trying to chase the fashion of what was being played at the moment. Quite often you'll sit with someone if you're collaborating on a song, and quite often they'll say, listen, I just heard this thing on the radio this morning, Usher's just released this thing and it sounds awesome, I reckon we should write something like that. And that's when I go, no, wrong. That's not what this is about. We're not trying to write, he's already done that. you're not going to be like him, or you're not going to write something like him. There's no point trying to be Lady Gaga or trying to write like Lady Gaga if you're not. Be yourself. Find where that thing lives inside you, the thing that makes you different. And that's what I wanted to do with this record, is I wanted to stay true to myself. I knew I wanted guitar solos in the songs because that's what I do. I'm a guitar player. And I know it's kind of a little bit retro, it's a little bit yesterday, but I feel that that's missing so much in today's music. And I wanted the passion to come out of the lyrics, so I put a lot of work into the vocals on this to try and make them as real and as passionate as possible. My experience in working with Rafaela Fox was just wonderful, always been wonderful. I first met her, gosh, it must have been, let's say it's a long time ago, without giving away too much. And I thought she was incredibly talented, very passionate, writes beautiful songs with beautiful words. And when we started writing together, it just opened up this whole new world for me. She writes English lyrics too, but especially with the Italian lyrics, because she's so romantic and so gorgeous at doing that. We have this great relationship where quite often she will send me, via email, she will send me a lyric of a song she's been working on, and then I will look at that and I will call her, quite often over the phone. I'll pick up the guitar and just off the cuff play something or sing a melody that I think might work, and she'll come back and say, look, I love that, or I don't love that. I mean, she's never actually said she doesn't love it. She always loves it, which is great. And then from there, between the two of us begins the editing process of the lyric, really, because I like the fact she sends me completed songs too, but quite often she'll send me so much material. Verses she's written, lines she's written, and then sometimes I might write something myself and send it back to her. But this is a collaborative process. We don't always write in isolation. We quite often have sat down together over lunch and written songs, and I love doing that too. But it's wonderful working with her because she loves to see where I can take her lyrics, and I love surprising her by sending her a demo or even an acoustic rough, sometimes me on guitar singing, of a song that she had written, which quite often in her head, her mind when she wrote it, the melody or the intent, the style might have been totally different, and I love turning that upside down. You know, one of the things I've always loved about music is the fact that you can have a really beautiful romantic lyric, and sometimes I say, but this would be great against a backdrop of like distorted guitars and big drums, and I love the duality of the two things. I love that. Now sometimes, obviously, you need to record a sensitive ballad, and I've done that too. Mai Finirà is a great example of a song that has so much meaning. It never ends. It's quite a profound subject and theme for me. But I wanted to put it against a really heavy guitar-driven track. And I love those things. It makes it hit home a bit more. It's a bit more aggressive, and if you're putting it on, if you're in your car and you're playing Spotify and that comes on, you're going to prick your ears up. When I started playing, when I was a young boy, I was pretty much the main guy. I was 13, I think, when I started my first band. And I was the lead singer. I was fronting that band with a bunch of kids from school, and we had an older kid too. Well, he was 18, he had his license, and we got him because he had a station wagon and he could carry all the equipment, even though my dad used to sometimes carry stuff for us as well. And then after that I started another band where I was the lead singer, and then from that point, quite often in bands I would be the main artist. And then I started playing in a show band when I was very young. Throughout this time I was doing recording sessions and in so many studios around Melbourne because I was classically trained, I could read, so I'd be called in to do TV spots and commercials and what have you. or backing artists and shows. And I joined this show band, and the way it used to work back in those days, especially in cabaret around Australia, is that they'd book a big act, like let's say at the time someone like Al Martino had come out to Australia and was touring, and the band I was in, we would be the band that would back him, but also we would do a set before he came on, as a kind of a dance set, if you know what I mean, while people were dining. And I would usually front the band. We had a girl singer as well, so the two of us would do duets and stuff like that. And I did that for years. But then I started producing, and my name started getting round, and more people wanted me to produce their material, their albums and stuff like that, or write songs for them. So I kind of stepped into the background a bit more, and I was the guy that put it all together for them. Quite often I would play most of the instruments as well. We'd obviously get specialist musicians to come in and do things, and quite often I would write the songs, and I would advise them or consult to them on how to push forward their careers. So I had this kind of role, really. I was like a record company guy, producer guy, all those kind of things for years and years, for many artists and hundreds of albums, singles and songs. And that was great, but I always wanted to do something for myself. And this album gave me the opportunity to finally put something out that's me, that's different, that I'm connected with in such a profound way, that celebrates my culture, my identity, and I'm very proud of this work. No, not at all. I'm very lucky because I can now use all the skills and all the strategies I've learnt over the years working with other people and other record companies. I'm now using them to help promote me. And I think I'm very, very lucky that I've had those experiences. Being part of a label, I'm part of a label called Ambition Entertainment. I see the strategy that's being used at the record label level of how to promote an artist or how to promote a release. And I've learned over the years working with everyone from Sony and Universal, and I could go on. Right? All those things I've learned, even when I was in the States working for labels over there, I brought all those things home. I mean, you put them in your little satchel, and they're there ready for you to use. And now's the time for me to use them. So, no, my approach hasn't changed. I know what needs to be done, and I'm using all those skills to forward my career now. Well, first of all, it's in Italian, so I'm sure they're not going to expect that. I sing every single song. I've played all the instruments on this release. I've sung all the backing vocals on this album, mixed it all. So it really is me. Everything about this record is me. Every note is me. Every word I sing, every emotion is me. So what they can expect is to hear a lot of moi. Right? Michael Cristiano is all over this because he's done it all. And I think a lot of my fans are going to be thrilled because I've made sure that I've included lots of fancy guitar work, if that's the way you'd like to put it. Some complicated arrangements, some sophistication in there, musically speaking. And I think there is enough variation on this album, even though the theme is all about love and loss and all those things, but it's variations on a theme. And there's everything from kind of really poppy, songs to kind of rockin' things to kind of groovy, chill out, kind of cruising, driving music to beautiful emotional ballads. It's got quite a cross section of styles, and I think my fans will really enjoy it. love all the tracks, but I think if I have to single some out, I'd have to start with Spero che ti vuole. Spero che ti vuole was the first song I recorded for this album. I love that song because the lyrics are so special to me, because I think they explain a situation that happens quite often in relationships, and it's about a guy that's in love with a girl, but they're no longer together, and he sees her with her new man, and he's saying, I guess to himself, he hasn't really told her, I think, but he's saying to himself, I hope he wants you the way I wanted you, and because my heart still burns for you. And so there's a little bit of jealousy and this unrequited love because he's lost her. We don't know the reasons why, but he's still obviously very, very, very much in love with her. And I love the sentiment of that, and I also like the fact that I put those lyrics against a backdrop of kind of rocky guitars and quite a pop synth backing with, and then I introduced some orchestration towards the second half of it. So I love that, and that brings back so many memories of that whole session recording that. I also love Anima Antica, which is another great lyric, and again I've put that against a cruisy kind of driving beat, and it's got a big guitar solo in it at the end, so it gives me a chance to fly musically, and it feels great to me. It's got guitar solo in it, it's got these great chords, the progression's fantastic, so I love that one. I also love, let me think, È tutta una poesia, which is very special too because that shows off a bit more of my classical guitar playing, and that's a very emotional, poetic lyric set against this almost Spanish style backing. So I would say that they're probably three of my favourites. And if I have to pick one more out of there, it would be Oggi No. It's another great song, great idea from Raffaella. Oggi No means not today. And that's another rocky, poppy song. And that song is also about love, but it's a kind of a bit more sexy in the way that it's about a guy, well, say it's me, in a hotel room with my lover. And it's a beautiful summer's day. You can imagine we're on the shore, on the coast of the Amalfi somewhere, Positano or wherever. It's a beautiful day and the sun is shining, the summer breeze is blowing through the window, and it's beckoning me to come outside and go to the beach and enjoy the day, but I don't want to go outside. I want to stay with her in the hotel room. So it's like, not today, baby, ain't going anywhere. And so that's what that means. And I love that song because it's, again, another guitar solo in that, and it's powerful and very, very poppy. I hope they get the feeling of the emotion and the work that's gone into this. A lot of my fans don't speak Italian, or they don't understand Italian. I have a lot of fans around the world that are from different countries, and most speak English, but I'd like to think that the quality of the recording, the melody, the emotion, I've tried to emote as much as I can in those lyrics. I hope that touches them in a way, and I've already seen that happen with so many people that don't understand Italian, but they're listening to the songs and then translating them, whether it be on Google Translate or whichever way they're doing it. But they like to see what I'm actually singing about and why I'm so passionate about this thing, and they just love the sound of it. And that really, really makes me really happy, because they just love the sound of the music and they love the sound of my voice, and they love it enough to make them want to do the research and find out what I'm singing about. So in a way, I've engaged them on a different level, and I'm really thrilled about that. Really, really thrilled. Probably one thing that I was a bit worried about releasing an Italian album from Australia. I mean, this isn't really meant to be released in Australia. This is a global record, and I thought about that a lot before I even did this. So it's really aimed towards Europe and the US. There's a huge Italian population there, as we all know, Canada. I also sing in Spanish, so I'm thinking about singing a couple of those in Spanish and releasing it to the, to the Spanish Latin world. We're talking about the South Americas and Philippines, and I mean, there's a huge market there. But regardless of what language you're singing in, I think if you can touch people with a melody and a sound, I think you're already halfway there, and I feel like I've done that, so I'm thrilled about that. I've got so many things planned to do. Definitely write and record more songs. I think there's another Italian album that will come out of this, but there's also English language albums which I'm working on, because I've written so many songs over the years. So I'd like to think that I'll be able to do that. I'd like to perhaps collaborate and maybe do some duets with some different artists, which Italian artists would be great. I mean, I'd love to do that. I think it'd be fun. I also have a classical guitar album in the works. So many things, and of course so many album productions that I have lined up to work on over the next 12 months or so. But the future does look really bright. I mean, there's a lot of work there, so there'd be a lot of late nights, but I love what I do. So I'm looking forward to bringing new music to you all.